Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mind Hostage, where we discuss overcoming adversity, achieving success, and living your everyday life with a positive mindset and faith. Today we have a special guest who has achieved overwhelming business success in the furniture industry. He's built a business from the ground up and is now one of the top furniture retailers in the nation. He's a successful businessman, leader, father, husband, and philanthropist. Please help me welcome Mr. Bob Mills.
It's true. We did what no other store was willing to do. I'm Bob Mills, and I made sure that when you walked through the doors of Bob Mills Furniture, you'd have a relaxing, stress-free shopping experience. And we came up with the idea of having no shopper stalkers because of our commission-free environment. I know you've seen at other stores salespeople that follow your every step. Don't you hate that? You see, our sales hosts are commission-free, so you're not going to be pressured into buying something you absolutely don't need or want. And when you're ready to purchase, they'll be here to help. That's our no shopper stalker promise. I've asked all the time, how do you do it? Commission-free shopping environment only at Bob Mills.
Good morning, Bob, and welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
Good. So, part of our show in the direction that we take in speaking to our listeners, Bob, are folks who have achieved success, sometimes despite the adversity that they've had to overcome. And I understand that you're very successful, what I would consider a mogul in the furniture industry. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I don't know about mogul. We have 9 stores. I started Bob Mills Furniture in 1971 when I was 23 years old. And boy, what a learning experience that was. I had no family members in the furniture business. The only thing I knew about furniture was I was raised on it. And we had some in our house. So I didn't know a lamp from a sofa. Some would say I still don't, but that was the facts back in 1971. And it was a tough journey. I got to admit that to you.
Well, and that's interesting because that's really something I'd like to touch on is part of that journey. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us, kind of going back to when you first got introduced to the business. I think one of the myths that I'd like to dispel is that folks who have achieved success were raised with a golden spoon in their mouth. Is that true for you?
Well, no, I had a wooden spoon in my mouth.
Okay.
And I got out of college and I couldn't find a job. I had a degree in music and business administration, and I couldn't find a job. So a high school friend took pity on me and hired me at an insurance company as a clerk typist. And he told me, he said, now you're going to be sitting out with 5 young ladies typing late payment notices. Can you do that? I said, yeah. Pays $400 a month. So I almost didn't get the job because I had a college degree. And they said, he's not going to stay here. But I begged him for the job. Mom had already said, you're on your own. My dad was killed in a car accident when I was 19, and I'm an only child. So she said, it's time for you to sprout your wings and let's go. So I took the job, and I developed a friendship with a guy that would come by my desk about once a week. And he would tell me about the wonderful adventures of the furniture business. Oh, it was so good. It was so great. They shoveled $100 bills through the front door every morning. And I thought, what a great situation. And it's better than pounding a typewriter the rest of my life. After 2 years, we talked, and I finally said, how much does it cost to get in the furniture business? He said, Bob, if we had $25,000, we'd be golden. Really? Well, I didn't have $25,000. I'm making $400 a month. But I knew somebody that did. So I went to Mom and I sold her on the idea, and she said, "Okay, I will loan you $25,000, but I'm not giving it to you. I want the return of my money and a return on my money." "Okay, Mom, you can count on me." Well, the first year we did pretty good, but we sold a lot of stuff. Let me put it that way. We didn't make any money, and I just couldn't figure out why we weren't making any money. Well, I soon figured out my partner just did not understand a cash flow. He thought if we sold $10,000 worth today, that $10,000 was ours. He didn't realize you've got people to pay and employees and things like that. So I asked one of my dear friends from the insurance company, an old crusty CPA, JT Thomas, to come down and take a look at our books. Now, JT wore a straw hat and horn-rimmed glasses and smoked Camel cigarettes, unfiltered. Boy, he was a tough guy. He came down, looked at our books, thumbed through them, talked to himself a few minutes. Of course, we didn't have computers. And he slammed the ledger shut and he said, "Bob, just as I thought, you're broke." Oh my goodness, we're broke. We're broke. My partner jumped to his feet and said, "JT, thank you for your time. You obviously don't understand the furniture business. Just send us an invoice and we appreciate your thoughts." JT laughed real big and he said, "Invoice? You didn't hear me. You're broke. You couldn't pay the invoice if I sent it to you." Oh my gosh. My partner said, "Bob, don't worry about a thing. He just doesn't understand the business." The very next week, my partner walked in the door with a piece of paper and a set of keys. And he slid them across the desk along with a piece of paper. And he said, "Here's my half of the deal. And there's the keys, and I'm out of here."
Wow.
"What do you mean you're out of here?" "Well, I'm gone. I'm not going to do this anymore. You can do what you want to." I sat there and I looked at those keys for a solid 3 hours. And the thing that kept running through my mind was the embarrassment you'd face. All your friends knew you were a failure. But the most important thing was my mom. I had to go to Mom and tell her I'd lost the money, wasn't going to be able to pay her back, and I knew that wasn't going to be a good conversation. Mom was a loving woman, but Mom was also a tough, stern businesswoman, and she meant what she said. So I had to tell her. She took it very well. She understood, and I've got to tell you, from that day for the next 3 years were the toughest days of my life. We got down to 3 employees on Friday. It seemed like Friday came every day. That was payroll day. And oh my goodness, if you didn't sell something, you couldn't make payroll. We never missed a payroll, but boy, we got close. And then 3 years later, in I guess it was 75, we got lucky. We were able to hire one great employee, a guy named Ken Collins. Ken was 3 years older than I was at the time. And we got on that floor and we started having fun. Didn't have any credit, didn't have much money. And we started selling stuff. And then we'd jump on the pickup and go deliver it, come back, sponge bath off, put our shirts back on and tie and do it again. And then we hired another good employee and then a couple of more good ones. And that taught me the value of people. If you don't have good people, it will not work. I don't care what business you're in. It's all about the people. Anybody can build a building, put furniture in it, but it's the people inside that building that make your customers want to come to you, buy from you, and return to you.
Well, Bob, let me ask you really quick right there. I think that's a pretty important piece because, when you said that you started this business and you had a few folks that are working for you and you overcame, some difficulties, did you feel, a responsibility for those people and their families, that were relying on you to eat?
Absolutely. The word family is so important to us in our culture today, because I look at every employee. Even today, we have 500 employees, and those families that are associated, and especially the little children. The little children, if I make a lot of decisions that are wrong, those children may suffer. And I take that very much to heart, that you have to think about the family. So when you make decisions, no matter who owns the company, it's a family decision that is good for the entire family, not just one member of the family.
Wow, that's powerful. Before we move forward with this, when we're talking about family, would like to go back a little bit, because I know that you over the years are accustomed to skipping over this piece, but you said something initially that I felt like was very significant. That's the fact that you lost your father at the age of 19. Now, that at 19 is a pretty major event.
Well, it was, and it was a tough day. But I can, and I don't share this with many people, but I can remember after I got that phone call that he had been deceased in a car accident, looking in the mirror, saying to myself, time to grow up. Time to grow up. And the kid ways have got to stop this moment, and you've got to be an adult and help your mom make it to the rest of her life, because you're responsible. And that weighed on me. But you know, I had a wonderful childhood, and I had two great parents. I did lose my dad, but I wasn't the first one that ever lost their dad. Wouldn't be the last one. But it just helps you reassess your entire thoughts on people, and the importance of it, and the importance of being a good leader.
I'm sorry, at that point, you know, I know that at 19 years of age, you having lost your father, you know, most young men at that age are, you know, looking to their fathers for, you know, kind of a role model and influence. Sounds like your folks did a really good job up to that point. But at any point in that time, were you motivated by wanting to make your father proud in heaven?
I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was confused. I didn't really have a mentor, and I believe that is so important. Everybody, whether you realize it or not, will have a mentor in life, good or bad, that will influence many of your thoughts and decisions. But the only thing I knew, Stephen, at that time, was to just keep going to work. I got to work at 7:30, and I was the first to open the store. And at 9:30 at night, I put the key in to close the store. And I did that 7 days a week. And I'm not proud to say it cost me my marriage, because I was so determined. I was not going to admit failure. Anybody can quit. Anybody can throw their hands up. But that was a day in which, if you filed bankruptcy and you walked off, you were blackballed. You had a big X across your back. There was a stigma that would always stay with you. I will tell you this, what prayer life I had at that time was certainly lengthened with those events that were going on for that 3 years. But during that time, it gave me a chance to learn so much, because every day, I mean, it was a day-by-day deal. I just don't mind telling you that. It certainly wasn't diamond rings and Cadillacs. There was one day in my life, I said a prayer that morning. I can remember it as if it was yesterday. I said, God, this is the day. I don't think I can do this anymore. I think the odds are stacked against me. And I got in my car and I drove down to this competitor that is so successful. And I parked across the street in the parking lot. And I just sat there and I watched customers going in and going out. And all of a sudden, I looked across the street and I noticed a brand new white Cadillac sitting there. Had a telephone antenna on it. And that day, nobody had telephones in their cars, but he did. He walked out the door in a pair of alligator boots and fresh starch jeans and a leather jacket. Put his jacket, his Cadillac, and getting ready to drive off. And I thought, I'm such a failure. If he can be that much of a success and eat steaks every night, surely I can figure out a way to eat a hamburger. And I got so motivated sitting across from that store. I drove back to our store and I was more determined than ever before to figure out a way to make it. And if I hadn't have made that journey down there, I don't know. I might have called it quits. It was a gray, overcast winter day, and everything was set up for you to just throw in the towel. But I came back so motivated that I said, we're going to figure out something. We got lucky.
That's the beauty, and I think the rawness of just being human. And what I would like other listeners to understand is that despite your success, you did arrive at a moment in time where you contemplated bailing out.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And everybody that's in business, if they'll tell you the truth, unless they inherited a huge, huge operation with tremendous capital and lots of great people, they've thought about the same thing. Failure is one of those things that you don't publicize a lot, but it's on your inner thoughts, your inner thinking. It affects your personal life. It causes people to do some bad stuff. Like I've seen a lot of people turn to alcohol, turn to drugs, womanizing, terrible things that destroy your character and ability to think clearly. That's the main thing. Think clearly under pressure. And I'm certainly not a perfect human being, but I think when you're in trouble, there's one thing you need. You need that clear path to the Lord himself, and you need all the wits about you can. And that doesn't come from alcohol and drugs.
That's very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So, Bob, so you ultimately took the steps necessary to achieve that dream. I know a little bit about where you're at today. And fast forwarding through some of those obstacles and those times where you wanted to quit, we know you didn't. And so tell us about that. As you started to achieve success, I'm sure you hit a lot of hurdles and obstacles and roadblocks along the way. What separates someone like you who has ultimately achieved success yet had to overcome adversity? What separates you from the folks that sit in here with a dream and a goal and a desire but hasn't taken that step?
Well, you see what you just said, a dream, a goal, and a desire, those are passive thoughts. They're passive. There's no action required. You can set, and your mind can do that for you. Now, the next step is let's put it into real life action. What are we going to do? If you want to do it bad enough, you will figure out a way. But the next most important ingredient in my mind is perseverance. I see so many young people today with good ideas, education, ability, and I look up a year later and they've already quit. They've already quit that idea and gone to do something else. If you love it, you'll do it. If you're lucky enough, as I was, to find something that you love, you will make it work. And I always tell everybody, today, I don't have to come to work, but I get to come to work. I'm privileged to be able to come to work and work with great people, with great hearts and a lot of ability. And they know more about our computer systems than I ever will. But I admit that. I freely admit that. They have so much more tech savvy than I do. But they have been able to turn us into a top 100 company, one of the top 100 furniture stores in America, and continuing to grow every year. We have 9 stores, and there's no way to keep up with that if you don't have strong technology. But I get to come to work every day, and I love to come to work. Some people like to play golf. I like to sell furniture because I like the people. On Black Friday, that was my time. I was privileged, and I mean this is a privilege. We opened the doors early. It was the biggest Black Friday we've ever had in our history this past week. I got to shake hands with every customer that came through the Oklahoma City door. We had over 4,000 people come through the door.
Wow.
And from 9 o'clock in the morning till a little after 6, store didn't close till 9 o'clock. But I'll tell you, at 6 o'clock, I'd had 2 10-minute breaks, and I was whipped. I was pretty tired. But it was so much fun getting to say hello to the people and thank them for coming through our doors. You see, you realize when you go in business for yourself, there's no guarantee that anyone will ever come to see you tomorrow or even today. You have to earn it every day. And I tell our people that yesterday's gone, it's today. Make me feel special, and I will come back to see you. And I think America today is so starved for people that will do just one simple thing. Tell me the truth. If you don't know, that's okay. Just tell me the truth. Find out. And if you tell me you're going to call me back, call me back. Even if you don't have the answer, you told me you'd call me back. That's the biggest complaint and the biggest comments that we still hear from customers every day. And I am in on our people's faces every day. I'm that passionate about that. Do what you said you would do. You tell the man or lady why you couldn't. They will forgive you. We love to forgive. We're a society of forgiveness. And if you will just ask, they will forgive you. Just like our Heavenly Father, we ask Him every day, please forgive me for the sins and terrible things I've done. And He's very quick and faithful to do that. So will your customer.
Well, I think that's really important because, at each and every turn, we have an opportunity to use our free will. And so many people at that moment make I think, sometimes unconscious decision to be untruthful. In working with the folks that I've worked with, I try to teach them that you need to raise your level of your consciousness enough to be in touch with what's going on in our subconscious, that we actually have an opportunity to make the right decision with every decision that we're faced with.
Well, you're exactly right. And there was a book written by Tony Robbins, a great motivational leader around the country, in which he said, pain and pleasure. Those are the two things that human beings are most affected by, that we will do anything to get from pain over to pleasure. Now, it's telling the truth. There's going to be pain associated with telling the truth. If I have to tell a customer or my wife or my son something that's not fun to hear, there's going to be pain associated. Oh, I don't want to do that. If I do that, I never have to remember what I said, and I can do everything I can to correct it, to do something. But the minute I start a habit of fabrication, things start to go downhill in your entire life, because that becomes contagious. You just don't see the need to tell the truth anymore. And people figure that out, and they have less confidence in you. Your employees, your friends, your family, that goes for everybody. The truth can be painful, but it's the happiest, shortest way to putting a smile on your face.
Wow, if everybody could really grasp that and put that into play, what a difference it would make in the world.
Well, it would. It would. We would all probably be saying some things we didn't want to hear, but we would know exactly where we stand every single day.
Now, I want to make the distinction right there, really quick, Bob, between being honest and truthful. And there are a lot of folks that I think they hide behind that in a way and saying, well, you accept me as I am. I just say the things the way I want to. And I think they get that a little twisted in that, there's a way to do that. There's a way to be honest with people and not hurtful and harmful to them. And I think the difference is in our heart.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're to love your neighbor as yourself. And when you love your neighbor, you're not going to purposely say hurtful things. You're going to maybe rearrange the truth a little bit to where it still makes the point, but it's not hurtful. Mm-hmm. Trying to hurt people sometimes can become a way of life that those people don't have many friends. They don't have many associates. Their business isn't successful because that type of attitude and behavior just doesn't work.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bob, would you tell me about maybe the greatest challenge that you have faced in business or life or whatever you're willing to share? What is the greatest challenge that you've had to endure, and how did you get through it?
Oh, I don't know. I think just in the past few years, it's like this. There's success and there's failure. Failure, you have no choices. You have one line to go down, one road to go down, and that's it, because you don't have the ability to make any choices. But success can be a lot more devastating, because with success, you can do left, you can go right, you can do this, you can do that. And bad decisions, both personal and business-wise, can very easily set in on us. And I think when success comes along, to learn how to handle success, many people can't. They become arrogant, full of themselves, prideful. Nobody likes that. But people that are successful, and I think that's just a challenge that you have to overcome. And people say, I've had people ask me this question many times, when did you know you were going to make it? Well, I never did. I still don't. I still keep the philosophy, we have to earn it every single day. Just because we're a large company today compared to a 3-employee company, the principles are the same. We have to earn it every single day. And that's a hurdle that you need to understand and realize. Your family is a lot larger today. There's a lot more people. So those decisions that you make, do it with care, do it with thought, with understanding, and many times you make a mistake. You make the wrong decision. And that's where you got to be man enough to say, I really messed up. Let's try to fix it.
So you own your own mistakes. That's an interesting concept.
You have to. You have to. So many people today, they can't get those words out of their mouth. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Here's what I'd like to do to make it right. This may sound braggadocious to you. This may sound arrogant to you, and I apologize if it does. But I tell our 3 children, I say, Brian, our oldest, is 46, daughter's 45, and Chris is 40. And they all work at the company, and they do a magnificent job. I always tell them, when it becomes involved with money, and it's right or wrong, it's only money. We can go make some more money. Always be faithful to give the other person the advantage, to give them more than what they ask. It's only money. If somebody's trying to cheat you, understand there's a reason they're trying to cheat you, or do something like that. But I don't want to let money be the ultimate God that we're after, because when you do that, your behavior will change and your thoughts will change. You no longer have a heart for people. which are the business. And when you lose it, you might as well put a key in the door.
Bob, tell me who are your major influences in life? You didn't have the father that, a lot of folks have or would love to have. You said that having role models are so key and important in life. Who were yours and who influenced you the most?
Well, I wasn't a Christian until I was a, let's call it a Tuesday morning Christian. I was lukewarm up until 25 years ago. And, but when I became saved and I was baptized, that was the real turning point of establishing a mentor in my life. But as far as on this earth, having a mentor, my mentors have changed over the years. There's been people that I've greatly admired and in the business world and in the personal world. But some of our great business leaders that have accomplished so much more than I ever have, I admire how they've done it, and then many of them have done it from nothing. Our competitor that I told you about, he was my mentor for many years. I just couldn't imagine that everything he touched was right. And I told his two sons one day, I meant it to be a compliment. I don't know if they took it that way or not. Somebody asked, said, what's the difference between you and your competitor? And I said, well, they had a multimillionaire for a dad, but they had a dad. And they could go to dad, and you don't understand the privilege this is. When you're confused, you're hurt, you don't know what to do, being able to go to dad and say, Dad, what should I do? Just tell me. And dad would tell you the truth and calm you down and make you feel better. But when you don't have that, that's when you have the ability to make some bad decisions and real mistakes. So choosing the right mentor is incredibly important, that you don't hook your wagon to somebody that will take you in a direction you shouldn't go. And we've all done that. We all look at the superficial side, but I think the mentors that I have today are those that their word is solid gold, and their word is better than their contract. And that's such a reputation today. You find very few.
It feels so refreshing when you find it, though.
Oh my goodness! You shake hands, you make a deal, no matter the size of the money, but you made a deal. And they and to me, when you shake hands with somebody, that is more credible than an inch thick contract.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And to look a man or a woman in the eyes.
In the eye, this is what I will do. I'm honor bound. I have no choice. I told her I would do this. And if I can't do it, immediately I've got to find this person and say, I know what I told you, but I'm unable to do that. Here's what I can do.
You know, Bob, this is something I feel very strongly about that we, right now in our generation, are missing and passing along to this younger generation. I think we've lost a lot of that, where men haven't stood up to be the men they should be, to pass these very important things along to our children and grandchildren.
Well, our federal laws have made it very difficult for us to display very much of our faith due to the fear of lawsuits. But I will tell you something that we do, and we should do it much more. But every Black Friday, is the way I've explained it to our kids, is we ask God for incredible favor and his blessing. Well, why should we just do it with ourselves? So we gather all of our employees by teleconference. We all hold hands and gather around and take just a minute and ask the one that gave everything to us and thank him for everything he's done, and pray for his favor that day. And I think it's just it's a feeling inside that you get that's indescribable. You know it's the right thing to do. People are embarrassed to bring the Lord himself into our business for fear of maybe just fear itself. But I always tell everybody, if you're uncomfortable in sharing with us, that's okay. You don't have to. But you know what? Everybody holds hands, no matter who they are, and they join in that word of prayer. And I think it makes us stronger. It doesn't make us smarter. It doesn't make us any richer. We're not doing it for that. But it's just the right thing to do. And I think that goes into houses today. You talk about people wanting to go in business. That's a major step. It's going to affect your family, your wife, and everything. A lot of risk. It's hard to go in business today for yourself. So many rules. But if you've got the Lord on your side, I believe somewhere in the Bible it says, if the Lord is for us, who can be against us? And he didn't say it's going to be easy. He didn't say it's going to be just every day is going to be success. But he said, I'll be there with you. I'll take care of you. I'll help you if you'll do what I ask you to do. And that's the tough part, doing what he asks us to do. I'm a slow learner. One of my old bookkeepers many years ago, she said, Bob, you're the dumbest man I've ever met when it comes to taking a hint. And I loved her like a mother. She was so honest with me. And I guess that's so. But that's kind of the philosophy that I have and that we run our business by, and try to do that on a daily basis.
Well, that's so important, and I appreciate you for sharing that. I think, a lot of folks kind of shy away from that. And something you said there that is very important, particularly for people who are young in their faith, is that, like you said, he didn't say there won't be problems. And so I know a lot of folks that have gone through adversity. I've interviewed folks who have gone through some tremendous adversity. They've lost limbs, they've lost children, they've lost, their loved ones. They've gone through some horrible things in life. And the tendency is when we hit some roadblocks is the kind of victim mentality part of our human ego is that we have to blame it on something or somebody. And so, a lot of folks young in their faith that hit the first roadblock think, well, I've been faithful. Why am I having to endure this? And it doesn't mean that we're not going to endure hardships. It means that when we do it along with him by our side, he's going to give us the strength and the guidance to get through it.
That's right. That's exactly right. And, the definition to me of faith is what has not happened, will not happen, and cannot happen, happens. And it's so amazing that it's hard to keep that kind of faith. It's very, very difficult. The older you get, your worries change. You start to worry about your health and these kind of things like that. But I've been so blessed with good health all my life that there's been so many good things that I rarely take the adequate amount of time to say, God, thank you for all the good things you've done. This little bitty thing over here that's a stumbling block, we'll figure it out.
That's so key, I think, because we get so used to focusing on the negative that many folks don't take the time, as you said, every day to focus on the many things we have to be thankful for and what a difference that spirit of thankfulness has in our life.
That's so true. The life is not always fair, but I would sure hate to try to go it alone.
Bob, we're kind of wrapping up. I've got a couple more things I want to ask you. One of is, if you could go back and change anything, what would it be?
If I could change anything, well, I would have become a believer and been baptized 45 years ago rather than 25. I would have made some better life decisions. Like I said, the schedule that I kept up cost me my first marriage. And by the way, a lovely person, a lovely young lady. It was all my fault. You just got business in the way of your personal life, but I made that decision. I regret that, but I don't have a lot to regret. I mean, I don't have a lot of changes that I would do. I think, I don't know. I think I would have probably tried to open a couple of more stores in some areas that I was tempted, but I did not. And I think we could have done exceedingly well. But our company continues to grow, and we've got 2 more stores slated on the drawing board to open. So, I just don't have a lot that I'd go back and redo. If I could take all the pain in those 3 years out of my life, sure, I'd do that. But I would not be the man that I am today or learned what I learned from those 3 years.
Now that is pretty powerful what you just said, and I think this is something that I try to reiterate with the listeners, and that is, whatever you may be going through right now, if we can find a thanks in it, because it's through our walk that makes us stronger and makes us who we are and gives us the lessons we need to learn, and each of us has that walk and have to walk it to be the person we're intended to be.
Well, and Stephen, everybody says, but you don't understand. My deal is tougher than yours. My situation is tougher than yours, and I may not. But you're exactly right. It's all about finding thanks and being able to say, thank you for the things that I've taken for granted for so long. And you've blessed me in so many ways. And this deal, I will overcome it with your help.
For me, what I found was that I had to continue to learn those tough lessons, first of all, because I wouldn't shut up and listen. What I found was God was trying to bless me all along, but I wasn't paying attention, just like a unruly kid. Made my own decisions and went my own way, and as a result, I continued to have to learn those hard lessons over and over again until I stopped and listened for a change.
Very true. Business is much like a child. If you raise a business correctly and you grow it correctly, it grows up to be a fine, fine citizen, just like a child. If you feed it, if you clothe it, you teach it, you love it, the kid grows up to be something you're so proud of. But if you don't do those things, you've got a hoodlum on your hands. And something that you say, what happened? Well, it's pretty easy to see what happened. You neglected those day-by-day trivial, small little things, stopping an employee saying, listen, I just want to tell you what a great job you do. I'm so proud of you. People are starved for recognition. And everybody thinks, oh, it's all about the money. No, it's not. Every survey you read, the money is 3 or 4 down the list. They want recognition. They want a great environment in which to work with people like themselves, and they want the ability to learn and have more self-respect. And that's what the furniture business does for me. It provides me with the ability to take young people, train them to be successful. There is no sin in doing well. There's no sin in doing success, provided that you did it the right way. And I love to see people get new cars and new houses and new things like that, because you feel like you had a little bitty part to do with that. And that's a pretty special feeling.
Well, and thank you for taking that responsibility seriously. And I know this is true about you, Bob, and I want to thank you for that. And a lot of people may not realize the influence that you may have had on them, but just as you are being gracious enough to grant me this interview today, you are taking the opportunity to influence and help many people, and that's very special.
Well, I've enjoyed the time today, and the ability to just speak frank and from my heart.
just wanted to ask you if you would leave our listeners, you shared a lot of wonderful things that are very meaningful, but if you were to summarize it in one statement, what would you leave our listeners with today of probably the greatest thing that they could do, in your opinion, to change their life from this point forward?
Well, the greatest thing I can say would be don't quit. If God is your co-pilot, change seats. Let him drive. You do the work. You stay true to yourself. Stay away from things that you know in your heart are bad for you. And you will find a way to succeed. And success is in so many different ways. It's not just money. It's not money at all. It's that feeling inside of peace. That's what it is.
Bob, thank you so much. I know you've shared a lot of things that are outside your normal story that you share. I hope I've done a good job at doing that. And I just want to thank you so much for opening up with our listeners and sharing, and look forward to having you on in the future.
Okay. Well, listen, you have a great day and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I want to thank Mr. Bob Mills again for taking time out of his busy schedule. Mind Hostage fans, I hope you're able to take some of the information shared in these interviews, some of our wonderful guests, and implement them into your daily lives and find your purpose in life. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to talking to you on our next episode.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.